ma'am. So there's several amendments. The first significant amendment has to do with when the ballots are sent out before each election. So the amendments would require that they be sent out 43 days before the election. And that would be to anyone who has made a request at least 60 days before the election. So mostly that would be the permanent absentee voters. The next amendment has to do with when boards can seek a waiver from the requirement to start processing mail-in ballots 8 days before the start of early voting. So the amendments would add that a local board could seek a waiver from that requirement if early counting was not practicable due to limited resources or other constraints on the local board. The next amendment has to do with vote tabulation before election day. As you know, the bill as it came in prohibited vote tabulation before the polls close on election day. This just adds a clarifying language to make it completely clear that the local boards can scan ballots before election day. They just can't aggregate those votes to generate vote totals. And that is all of the amendments, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Stan. Any questions on the amendments? All right, I would like to add the amendments to the bill so that we can discuss the bill as amended. I'll entertain a motion.
Move the amendment.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on the amendments? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed? Delegate Griffith and Delegate Miller. The ayes have it. We will proceed with HB 535 as amended. Any discussion?
Favorable.
All right, it's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on HB 535 as amended? Delegate Miller.
My only concern was, well, one of the concerns was about if we are going to count that second vote or count the first vote and not the second vote, if there was a way that people would be notified that the ballot was submitted, that the early ballot was submitted, and if they did not actually request that ballot, if there was a way for them to let the Board of Elections know that they did not request that ballot. So if they have an email that's listed and it was sent to that email, that they actually can say that, no, I did not request that ballot. I'm going to be voting in person or whichever. And I appreciate Stan answered a lot of questions for me, so I appreciate that. So that's my concern about that. We did have people at the polls that had received that when they voted provisionally, they said that, that they had done an early voting and they had not requested it. So I did have a few people tell me that at the polls. That was my only concern, making sure that they had an avenue to say that I didn't request this ballot and I don't want that vote to count. But
So are you saying that there are people who believe that someone voted for them and returned a ballot for them?
yes. Or it was just turned in. Yes. So is there a way, is there a way that if someone requests and the board receives that ballot, they send out an email, right? They send out notification that they received that ballot. Okay. Is there a way that if someone receives that and they did not request that ballot, for them to tell the board that they did not request the ballot?
Well, they can always contact and call. If you get a notification that you received a ballot that you don't want, you can definitely always call. But Delegate Miller, that's a very serious thing in terms of someone voting a ballot for someone else that the person didn't request. I'm going to ask Mr. Demarinis if there were any investigations regarding that or anything that you can comment on, because that would be fraud.
Madam Chair, I did do some inquiries about the last election in 2022. We had 2 complaints that a but both were older voters who remembered.
You
that they-
sound a little far away, Jared. I don't know if it's just me. You can,
Oh, sorry.
hard to hear you.
A little bit better now?
A little bit. We'll just try to listen closely.
Sorry, yeah, all right, I'll try to. But we had about 2 complaints in 22, but both were older voters who then later remembered that they had received and voted their mail-in ballots and then showed up at the polling place. Most of the time, this is kind of an older subset here that we get people and they don't necessarily remember that they had received their mail-in ballots, but we did not get anybody that was not reported that a mail-in ballot was voted, and only that they had received mail-in ballots that they didn't request. But at that point there, then if they show up in person, they would be able to vote the provisional ballot. If these cases that the delegate has mentioned, I mean, the current process would be to refer it over to the state prosecutor's office and have them investigate the matter diligently, because that would be voter fraud, as the chair had mentioned. So yes, it was. I think that the current
But
law.
their votes wouldn't count then. The first vote would have counted. That's my point. But anyway, that's.
Your concern is noted, Delegate Miller. I think that honestly, I'd be more concerned about the fraud that is taking place. But I hear the concern that you are raising. And Jared, thank you for letting us know that there were only 2 accusations around that, and both of them were found to be unwarranted. However, in that case, Delegate Miller, we want to investigate that, and that first ballot that was sufficient, that was received, would be the one to count. But your concern is absolutely noted. Delegate Griffith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just to put a finer point, and more along lines with what Mr. Demanis identified. So when I talked to this Florida State Board of Elections, one of the reasons they put on signature verification on there is because they have an older demographic there that votes in a very high rate, and it's very common in Florida, from what the State Board of Elections told me, that some of the senior citizens will mail in a ballot, forget they did, and then show up to vote. And that's where their conflict comes in. So when they show up and look, hey, here's your signature, you actually did vote. That's the mechanism they use to defuse that, which happens to be relatively common in Florida because of the demographic there. So just to throw that out there.
And I'm sorry, Delegate, because you are raising a serious point. But Florida, I don't know. We're going to be trying to follow the lead of Florida here in Maryland, but I do appreciate your due diligence on that, Delegate. Is there any other discussion on this bill? All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. HB 535 as amended. All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye. All right, all those opposed? Delegate Miller and Delegate Griffith. The ayes have it. HB 535 moves out of subcommittee as amended. All right, HB 899 is the next bill that we're going to take up. State Administrator of Elections removal from office. And this bill does have amendments. The original bill, as you may, actually, I'm gonna have Stan give us a.
You'd like me to talk about the amendments, Madam Chair? Sure. So the amendments do a few things. They specify that the state administrator will now serve a term of 4 years that will begin on August 1st. It specifies that the deputy administrator would step in to serve as state administrator in the event that the state administrator is removed from office or the expiration of the term of the state administrator occurs without a successor being in place. It also adds uncodified language specifying the application of the act to the incumbent state administrator on June 1st of 2023, that individual would be eligible to be appointed to a term, but could not, that starts on August 1st of this year, but could not continue to serve unless reappointed to that term. And those are the amendments.
Any questions about the amendments to the bill? All right. Oh, Delegate Feldmark.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sorry, Stan, can you just clarify for the first term would begin August 1st of 2023? So is the thinking, and this doesn't take effect until June 1st of 2023. So is the thinking that the board would appoint someone who would be serving on an acting basis until confirmed by the Senate? Is that?
So that's standard for
Okay.
any appointments that are made when the legislature is out of session, that they serve in an acting capacity until confirmed and are fully empowered until confirmed to act in all respects.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, let's add the amendments to the bill and then we can discuss it further as amended. Is there a motion?
Move the amendments.
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. The amendments to HB 899 are is there any further discussion actually? All right, seeing no discussion, it's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor of the amendments to HB 899, say aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? Well, that was everyone was for it. All right, HB 899 has had the amendments officially added. Now let's discuss further the bill as amended. Any discussion? Okay, let's take a motion.
Move favorable on the bill as amended.
Second.
All right, HB 899 as amended has been moved favorably and properly seconded. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of HB 899 as amended, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed? All right, a unanimous bill. HB 899 moves out of subcommittee, unanimous. All right, HB 572. This is a bill that we actually have passed a few times in our subcommittee and actually in the House, and hopefully this will be the year to get it across the full finish line. For our new members, and I'm sure you were able to read through the bill and also participate in the hearing. When it comes to RLA, these are post-election audits. After every election, we do an audit to make sure the outcome is accurate and there are no discrepancies. And a risk limiting audit is widely considered to be the gold standard of election audits. It's a procedure. It looks at the chance that a full manual count of the paper records would find a different outcome. So in a risk limiting audit, random batches of paper ballots in a contest are examined until it's determined that a full manual count would not have a different outcome. And it's the risk limit is the maximum chance that I was referring to. And so, for example, a 5% risk limit means that there's a 95% chance that the outcome would not be different. HB 745 requires the risk limited audit of at least one statewide contest and at least one local contest in each county, as well as any other contest selected by SBE to be completed before certification of the election results and to be observable by the public. This bill is one that has been, I believe, completely unanimous out of the House the last several times. Yes, it's been a unanimous bill. And is there any discussion about this bill? HB, and it's actually HB 572 this year. I might have said last year's bill number. Delegate Griffith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just I guess a clarification question. Obviously, risk limiting audits, great idea. In this bill, does it still remove any of the existing audits?
can answer that question, Madam
Yes,
Chair.
go ahead, Stan.
So there's currently a manual audit of just one contest that takes place, but it doesn't take place until after certification. It's up to 120 days after certification. So this bill does repeal that because the risk limiting audit is a manual audit. It would be of more contests and it would be more rigorous, but also more efficient. So it really makes the current manual audit redundant. So it repeals that. And then it also makes the current automated software audit optional rather than mandatory. The automated software audit is not recommended by experts, but the bill leaves it to SBE's discretion if they want to continue to do that audit. And the indication is that they would continue to do it.
I guess our concern, obviously we don't want to, we think the software audit is important and we think that should remain mandatory. And I guess the other concern is there an opportunity and would the subcommittee consider, at least for one election, having both the manual and the risk limit audit together to make sure that it's doing what we wanted to do. And then after the next election, then, remove the redundancy.
That seems like a lot on our boards to do a manual and doing a risk limit, but Stan and Jared, if you can share any of the mechanics around that.
I'll just say that the bill allows for that. If the board wants to continue to do this automated software audit, they have the discretion to do that, and they've indicated that they would continue to do it. So that's the main thing I would say. But I don't know if Jared has anything he wants to add.
I would just, for the local boards and their advocacy, they're doing two.
Jared, it's very hard to hear you.
I guess it's new Windows 11 here. I'm sorry to say that.
That's better. That's better now.
Okay. Just doing two manual audits would be very time consuming and, like Stan said, redundant in that case there. So, the other one is an automated audit that would be fine, but doing two manual audits after the primary and the general election would be very taxing on the local boards in a time when, especially between the primary to the general, when they're actually having to gear up and close out one election to then start the process for the general election. So, at that point there, I just don't see the redundancy value being added.
Thank you.
Delegate Feldmark.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I don't know, I had just wanted to sort of, in response to that question, ask Ms. Berry if she had, because I too was kind of concerned about the impact that would have on our local board. So I think Jared may have already addressed that, but I wasn't sure if she had anything to add.
Ms. Berry, if you're able to chime in.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Delegate Feldmark. I guess my only concern is if this is to be done before certification, there are components of our current comprehensive audit that are very time consuming as well. So allowing for maybe some regulations to dictate what parts of the comprehensive audit that can be eliminated because of doing RLA, that would be my only concern, because the automated recount audit is the state board's what the state board does, and then the manual audit that we have gone through after the general election is something that's post certification. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Madam Chair, may I add something?
Sure.
So the bill leaves all of that to SBE's discretion. The comprehensive audit, the automated software audit, all of that stuff is up to SBE's discretion and regulation, so they could balance out the workload for the local board so that it's manageable.
Thank you, Stan.
Sure.
That seems like it's a decent compromise. Delegate Miller.
That was along the question would be, so I just want to clarify that first audit that you were saying is not the second one, that the second manual that's in there now that Delegate Griffin was referring to. That first one is a comprehensive long one, but you're saying that they can determine when they do it, and it is like a traditional, what we would call like a paper type manual review. Do I have
So
that right?
So the RLA is a paper review of ballots.
Okay. I just want to make,
And-
because I'm new at this, sorry.
Absolutely, yes. No, it's a hand and eye inspection of paper ballots. That's what an RLA is.
Okay, and so they would be able to dictate, like, because of the workload and how comprehensive that is, they would be able to adjust when that would be.
They would be able to adjust other audit requirements, but the RLA would be completed prior to certification.
Okay. Okay.
Delegate Fair.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And I just, a quick question for Stan. On page 4, lines 29 through 32 outline that if they find a different, the election count is incorrect, the official result shall be altered to match. Will it just be matched based on the risk limiting audit of the percentage of ballots that were counted, or will that automatically trigger a full recount of the votes?
So the way that works is that if there is, the audit will itself escalate to a full recount. And then that's the circumstance under which the result would be changed to match the audit result, because it would be a full recount at that point.
Wonderful, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, I know Delegate Griffith has to jump in a second. Maybe we can go ahead and vote on HB 572. This bill has no amendments. Can I entertain a motion?
Move favorable.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor of HB 572, say aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? All right, another unanimous bill out of the subcommittee, HB 572 moves forward favorably. Thank you. All right, we'll probably meet again next week on Wednesday or Thursday. Thank you for all of your preparedness and great questions and comments today. And we will be back in touch. See everyone at 1 o'clock.